James Harris, 42, was one of Chicago's top criminal defense attorneys in the early 2000s. His career kicked off 15 years earlier after graduating from Harvard Law School, and he quickly built a reputation as a brilliant lawyer specializing in complex cases involving organized crime and high-level corruption. Harris worked at the prestigious law firm Baker & Partners, where he held the position of senior partner. His annual income exceeded $500,000, affording him a luxurious lifestyle. He resided in a $3.5 million penthouse in the upscale Gold Coast neighborhood with breathtaking views of Lake Michigan. James was married to Emily Harris, 38. They met a decade ago at a charity gala and tied the knot after a whirlwind year-long romance. Emily worked as a managing director at a major consulting firm, a job that required frequent business trips across the country to meet with clients. The couple had no children, citing their demanding careers and desire to focus on professional growth. They maintained an active social life, regularly attending high-profile events and nurturing connections with Chicago's elite. James considered his marriage ideal. Emily was intelligent, attractive, and successful in her own right. They shared common interests including travel, fine art, and gourmet cuisine. Each year they indulged in exotic vacations, with their most recent getaway being a luxurious retreat in the Maldives. In legal circles, James Harris was renowned for his unwavering integrity and strict adherence to the law. He consistently refused cases if he suspected the client was guilty of serious crimes, earning respect from colleagues for his ethical stance and professionalism. James' typical workday began at 7 a.m. and often stretched past 9 p.m. Weekends were frequently sacrificed to prepare for high-stakes trials. Emily understood his dedication, as her own career demanded similar commitment. Their life seemed picture-perfect, a testament to the American dream of success and happiness. However, beneath the surface, a storm was brewing that would soon shatter their carefully constructed world. On March 15, 2004, James' perfectly ordered life began to unravel. He returned home earlier than usual due to a canceled client meeting. As he entered their penthouse, he overheard Emily on the phone in her home office. The door was slightly ajar, and James caught a fragment of the conversation. "Yes, the target has been eliminated. Transfer the funds through the usual channel. The next assignment? I'll await the details." Emily's voice was cold and businesslike, a tone James had never heard from her before. Puzzled and concerned, he initially dismissed it as a work-related call, perhaps some corporate jargon he didn't understand. However, in the weeks that followed, James noticed a series of peculiarities in Emily's behavior. Her business trips became more frequent and longer. Her explanations grew increasingly vague, and she stopped sharing details about her work projects, a stark contrast to her previous openness. On April 23rd, an incident occurred that intensified James' suspicions. He accidentally discovered a passport in Emily's bag under the name Sarah Johnson, bearing his wife's photograph. When questioned, Emily nervously explained it was part of a new corporate security project she was working on. James found the explanation unconvincing, but chose not to press the issue. In early May, Emily announced a week-long business trip to Los Angeles. James, driven by growing unease, decided to verify her alibi. He called her consulting firm's office, only to be informed by the secretary that Emily had taken vacation leave for the week. These events forced James to seriously contemplate what was happening in his marriage. Reflecting on the past year, he realized that changes in Emily's behavior had begun about 8 months ago. She had become more reserved, less willing to share her thoughts and feelings. She had also started paying more attention to her physical fitness, regularly visiting the gym, and taking up martial arts classes. James found himself at a crossroads. His legal training and ethical standards urged him to uncover the truth, but his love for Emily and fear of what he might discover created an internal conflict. After days of deliberation, he made a difficult decision. He would conduct his own investigation into his wife's activities. Understanding the potential consequences of his actions, James approached the situation with the same meticulous attention to detail he applied to his legal cases. He knew that whatever he discovered could change their lives forever, but he felt compelled to uncover the truth, regardless of the cost. On May 10, 2004, James Harris initiated his covert investigation into his wife's activities. He hired Michael Donovan, a former FBI agent turned private investigator, whom he had worked with on previous cases. Donovan's assignment was to surveil Emily and gather all possible information about her activities without arousing suspicion. The first 2 weeks of surveillance yielded little of significance. Emily's routine appeared normal. She went to work, met with clients, and attended her regular gym sessions. However, on May 27th, there was a breakthrough. Donovan reported that Emily had left Chicago, flying to Miami under the alias Sarah Johnson. Using his connections, James obtained access to security camera footage from Miami International Airport. The recordings showed Emily meeting with an unknown man and receiving an envelope from him. Later investigation identified this man as Richard Thornton, a known intermediary in the world of contract killings. 3 days after Emily's return from Miami, news broke of the assassination of George Paxton, an influential businessman and political donor. Paxton had been shot in his Miami Beach penthouse. Police found no signs of forced entry, suggesting the killer was someone known to the victim. James began analyzing Emily's financial transactions. He uncovered several large transfers to offshore accounts, occurring shortly after her business trips. The total sum of these transfers over the past year exceeded $2 million. On June 15th, Donovan provided James with photographs of Emily entering an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Chicago. She left an hour later carrying a small suitcase. Further investigation revealed that this warehouse was used as a cache for weapons and other tools necessary for carrying out contract killings. James also discovered encrypted files on Emily's home computer. Using skills he had acquired while working on cybercrime cases, he managed to decrypt part of the information. The files contained detailed dossiers on several individuals, including their daily routines, residences, workplaces, and information about their home security systems. As June came to a close, James had amassed enough evidence to conclude with certainty that his wife was leading a double life as a contract killer. He found himself facing a complex moral dilemma. On one hand, his professional duty and personal beliefs demanded that he report these crimes to law enforcement. On the other, he still loved Emily and couldn't bear the thought of her spending the rest of her life in prison. After much internal struggle, James decided to confront Emily directly, hoping to understand her motivations and possibly persuade her to end her criminal activities. He arranged a meeting at their country house on July 5th, saying he wanted to discuss an important matter away from the bustle of the city. On July 5th, 2004, James and Emily Harris arrived at their country house, located 2 hours outside of Chicago. James was tense and nervous but tried not to show his state of mind. Emily, seemingly unsuspecting, was in good spirits. After dinner, James suggested they have wine on the terrace. Once they were settled in their chairs, he decided to initiate the conversation. "Emily, we need to talk seriously. I know about your other job." Emily instantly tensed, her face becoming unreadable. "What are you talking about, James?" James took a deep breath and continued. "I know you work as a contract killer. I have evidence of your trips, meetings with intermediaries, financial transactions. I know about the murder of George Paxton in Miami." Silence reigned for several seconds. Then Emily calmly asked, "How long have you known?" "I started suspecting a few months ago, but I only became certain recently," James replied. Emily stood up and walked to the terrace railing. Without turning around, she began to speak. "I started doing this 2 years ago. At first, it was just a way to earn extra money. Then I realized I enjoyed it. The adrenaline, the sense of power, the ability to dispense my own form of justice." James was shocked by her cold tone. "But how can you justify murders? This goes against everything we believed in." Emily turned to face him. "I only kill those who deserve death. Corrupt politicians, crime bosses, pedophiles, those whom the justice system can't or won't punish." "It's not for you to decide who should live and who should die," James argued. "You're breaking the law and fundamental moral principles." "And aren't you doing the same thing by defending criminals in court?" Emily retorted. "I defend everyone's right to a fair trial. That's completely different," James responded. Their conversation continued for hours. Emily explained her motivations, how she entered this world, and her rules for choosing targets. James tried to convince her to stop the killings and turn herself into the authorities. By dawn, it was clear they had reached an impasse. Emily had no intention of giving up her activities, and James couldn't reconcile himself with the fact that his wife was a killer. "What are you going to do now?" Emily asked. James was silent for a long time before answering, "I don't know. I love you, but I can't turn a blind eye to what you're doing. I need time to think." Their conversation ended there. They returned to Chicago in silence, each immersed in their own thoughts and doubts. In the days following their confrontation at the country house, James and Emily Harris returned to their daily routines. But the tension between them was palpable. James immersed himself in work, trying to distract himself from thoughts about his wife's double life. Emily seemed to become even more cautious in her actions. On July 15, 2004, an event occurred that finally changed the situation. James learned that his longtime client and friend, Judge Robert Coleman, had become a target for a contract killing. The information came from a reliable source in the police force. James suspected that Emily might be connected to this contract. That evening, James confronted Emily. "Do you know anything about the contract on Judge Coleman's life?" Emily didn't deny it. "Yes, I was offered that contract, but I didn't accept it." "Why?" James asked. "Because I knew he was your friend," Emily replied. "I have my principles." This conversation became a turning point for James. He realized he could no longer live in this situation. The next day, he made a decision. On July 16th, James met with FBI agent Sarah Thompson, with whom he had worked on several cases in the past. He provided her with all the information about Emily's activities, including evidence collected by the private detective. "I understand what this means for me and my career," James said, "but I can't allow this to continue." Agent Thompson accepted the information and began the process of preparing for Emily Harris' arrest. On July 18, 2004 at 6 a.m., a team of FBI agents stormed the Harris penthouse. Emily was arrested without resistance. During the search of the apartment, firearms, forged documents, and encrypted files with information about potential targets were discovered. James was present during the arrest, but did not interfere with the agents' actions. As Emily was being led out of the apartment, she looked at her husband and said, "I understand why you did this. In your place, I would have done the same." That same day, Emily Harris was charged with multiple counts of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and other related crimes. James was questioned by the FBI but was not charged, as he had voluntarily provided information and was not involved in his wife's criminal activities. The trial of Emily Harris began on January 10, 2005, and lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented irrefutable evidence of her guilt in 7 murders. Emily pleaded guilty to all charges, which somewhat mitigated her sentence. On February 5, 2005, she was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. James Harris attended all court sessions, but did not testify. After the sentencing, he met with Emily privately. "I still love you," he said, "but I couldn't let you continue killing people." "I know," Emily replied. "You did the right thing. I don't hold it against you." They agreed to maintain contact through letters, but both understood that their marriage was effectively over. The Emily Harris case received wide media coverage. James was forced to leave Baker & Partners due to the negative attention to the firm. He also temporarily suspended his law practice. Over the next year, James cooperated with law enforcement agencies, helping to uncover the network of intermediaries and clients associated with Emily's activities. His testimony and the evidence he gathered led to the arrest of several major figures in the criminal world. By the end of 2005, James Harris decided to change the direction of his career. He began teaching ethics at the University of Chicago Law School, using his experience to educate future lawyers about the importance of moral principles in professional activities. Emily Harris is serving her sentence in a maximum security federal prison. She agreed to cooperate with the authorities, providing information about other criminals she had worked with. In exchange, she was granted some privileges in prison. The Harris case became the subject of several books and documentaries, exploring issues of morality, justice, and the complexities of human relationships. The story of a successful lawyer who discovered his wife was a contract killer continues to spark interest and discussions in society, serving as a stark reminder of the hidden depths that can exist beneath the surface of even the most seemingly perfect lives.